Whatever works.
All right, we got the thumbs up, so it is 9:08 and we're going to start the meeting. Calling the meeting, the local planning agency, take a quick roll call.
Bruce. Smith. Stafford.
Kyle.
Adderholt.
All right, Jane Plummer has an excused absence, and Dan Fowlers has an excused absence. He is out sick. Texted me this morning that he has home. Keep it away from us. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Allegiance to the flag of the United States, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. Rise for our invocation this morning, and I just want to say a few words that we pray that the pandemic that we're in, that we all get through it safe and sound. Our family members and our community members do as well, and that both physically, financially come through on the other side. Thank you. All right, let's get the meeting going. All right, let's start with our agenda, approval of the minutes from the 11th and from February 11th and our special meeting on February 24th. Questions, comments, or changes? Before, I know you have a few.
Yeah, I do.
I asked you to table them last week.
On the page, under the 200 Pearl Street rezoning, found in the third paragraph.
In response to questions?
Yes. Previous draft said in response to LPA member Hughes' question, my name got stricken. That's all right, because, you know, I'm so modest. But I would like to be more specific. What the question was, instead of just a generalization regarding the re-disaster build-back, I may suggest what I specifically questioned was of the commercial use requirement in the comp plan pre-disaster build-back policy. Property zone RC in mixed residential and in the CP. Issue of the commercial use requirement in the
Comp plan.
was okay. Page under red coconut variance. Down for motion approved 5-1 with member Smith dissenting. I don't know whether you wanted to put what you dissented. You wanted to limit the use, limit the area to the buildings, buildings adjacent to the area adjacent to the buildings.
Limit the area adjacent to the buildings.
Yeah, what it come down to, if I can clarify, we have a 400-foot fence they wanted to get variance for. They only really needed the variance next to where the building is, the wash house and the restrooms.
Okay.
As opposed to granting variance for the complete 400 feet, only allowing them to have the variance around the building. Why I was in dissent of the proposal.
We got that on record, so we'll hopefully get that.
And then on that motion and that same issue, LPA member Hughes moved to reconsider. That was Hughes. That was Smith.
Get a second.
Okay.
My comments, Chairman.
Jim, do you have any?
Nope. Oh, ma'am.
I don't have any either. I hear a motion to adopt the minutes as with changes.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against, say nay. Passes 5-0. All right, moving along to our public hearings. We're going to open up,
We can do the second.
oh, I thought we were doing them both. I read them for both.
Oh, okay.
Can open it back up for,
Oh, no, I thought, yeah.
okay, so that was just for the February 11th meeting notes. Open up, any questions, changes, or issues with the February 24th meeting notes?
Do you have any, Dan?
No.
No, I do not. I wasn't
not?
there.
I hear a motion to adopt the regular meeting minutes from February 24th with no changes.
Moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Passes 5-0. All right, now we'll open up the public hearing for comprehensive plan evaluation and appraisal report reconsideration of changes, otherwise known as EAR. Does town take it from here to both the applicant?
So previously, so basically, we would ask that the LPA, our recommendation request to amend the EAR, which previously said that we needed to code the comprehensive plan. Through a re-review, we saw that none of the changes were state required. They will be amended as our comprehensive plan amended. However, they're not state code required. So we are changing to the state to indicate that we don't need to do the EAR-based amendments at this.
What talking with Jason, he made it sound, and you can confirm or not confirm, that this is make changes to the comprehensive plan. We're better off going through the process of review and analysis with town council as we did last year with the LPA versus doing EAR changes.
Yes. I mean, we would have to do the EAR changes if there was something that the state code said we had to change. But through an evaluation, we've determined that that isn't something we absolutely have to do, and it would be a better process for us to go through the complete comprehensive plan update rather than do little tweaks and then do the comprehensive plan.
Next questions?
Sarah, procedurally, is it just a threshold issue? Is that how it works?
There are certain requirements that the state will sometimes, they'll make a change to the state code, and sometimes those rise to the level of requiring a change in our comprehensive plan. In this case, they're sort of recommendations, they're good ideas, they're things that we change, but they're not anything that rises to the level of us being required by state law.
The way I understood is that the analysis that we did in 2016, after reanalyzing, looking at it again today, we have met the state requirements for changes to the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
It's every 5 years?
I think it's 10.
I think it's 10 now.
It's 10.
Actually.
Yeah.
The state has lengthened the time period which you need to, and that you need to do less, and leaving it up primarily to local governments to administer the comprehensive planning process themselves primarily. So as Sarah and staff has indicated, it's really just reporting to the state that your comprehensive plan either is in compliance with state law or it isn't, and to the extent that it isn't, saying that you'll amend it to whatever needs to be done to bring it into compliance with state law. Staff reviewed what work had previously been done and determined that we are in compliance with state law. Our comprehensive plan has all the required elements, all the required provisions. Therefore, the request is to for you all to say, yes, it's appropriate to send a letter, a revised letter to DEO, the Department of Economic Opportunity, saying that we are in compliance with state law, and therefore there are no needed amendments to the comprehensive plan process.
Where is the town in that 10-year timeline?
I hear you, Jim.
I said, where is the town in that 10-year timeline? Where are we timeline-wise?
We're at the 10th year. That's why we're reporting.
So this is year 10. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm curious.
I have a question that, just to clarify, on that material, starting on page 18, over in the left-hand column, it says statute, and then 5 and 6 and 10. What are those references? I didn't understand where that's coming from.
The chart. Column A on the chart.
I'm not
Under the
sure.
policy audit.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that comes from. I wasn't part of this process up until today. So I apologize.
I can tell you that the statute that we're required to be in compliance with is Chapter 163 Florida statutes.
Right. I just was wondering, but the 5 and 6 sections of that section?
Again, I can't speak with 100% certainty,
Okay.
but I believe that that chart was produced by prior staff.
Could just be the things they wanted to look at, and these are the ones they actually changed. I think what we're kind of saying, where that came from. It could
I
be just their
can't speak
listing
to-
on that's line number 5 on the original chart. Any other questions?
No, I personally assume that our outstanding staff has totally reviewed this thing and the conclusion that no amendments required, so.
That we want to make sure that you all, this is a technical compliance issue. We are in process of engaging a consultant to body staff and ultimately the town council to do a complete review of the comprehensive plan and update it. As I said before, at the local level, what is needed for us to move forward, what we want our comprehensive plan to say. Obviously, as we move forward in that process, we also make sure that it's compliant with state law.
Last year, we sat down with the new town council after the election, and we listed our 10 areas we wanted to address, and we got through them in the LDC. This year, maybe we look at the comprehensive plan, and then could that help focus the consultant on where this body and council feels that they should really look at the LDC, that we feel that there's some changes that need to happen? Would that be better?
I suspect very strongly that one of the first things the consultant is going to do once it is engaged is come here and meet with you all and process of meeting with you, with the public, and determining what are the priorities and what are the changes to the comprehensive plan that this community wants, and go through that process. And one of the things that is, I recall in the RFQ that was been issued is that they, provide outline of how they propose to do that. So that they will come before the town council at some point and agreement will be approved, a professional service agreement, laying out what the goals, objectives of the comprehensive plan, what the goals and how they're going to achieve those, and what that public process and public input will be. But certainly will involve you all, because that's one of the things that you're specifically tasked with under the state statute and the town code to do.
And I would recommend that if you start looking through the comprehensive plan now and getting some ideas of what you think are some sections that need to be revised and looked at again, it would be a really good exercise for you to sort of start now.
Disaster build back. I have a question, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
If I may, who is the consultant that's been retained?
We don't
Time
have
for
it
bid.
yet.
Oh, I see. Well, I would be very hopeful that they would retain Bill Spakowski. I've worked with a lot of planners over the years, but he was the one that originally drafted this with the LPA. But,
It has to be done in accordance with our procurement process and
well, I understand.
whatever that outcome is.
I understand that. There would be a process there, but my own personal,
So
what it's worth.
for the sake of today, though, we're talking about the letter to the town, letter to the state, sorry, I apologize. And that we are not going to make any amendments or changes to this, or do we have any amendments and changes we would like to make? To the charts here.
The form of action,
It would be to make a motion to authorize staff to send an updated letter to DEO.
so move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the letter, 5-0. Passes.
Was the second,
Let Jim have it.
Oh, let Scott have it.
Oh, dear Lord.
He was fat, he's.
Go this way.
okay, we'll give it to Jim.
All right. Oh. Guess there was, I kind of screwed that one up because I didn't do public comment on it. There's nobody here. Just make a due note, there's nobody here.
You can, there's not any action being taken, so it's
Okay.
technically not but those who are watching for the record, there is no one in the audience, so.
Technically a
there
public
is.
hearing.
Don't discount him.
I'm sorry.
Can't even see him from here.
Okay.
But let me, he is always here. There, and no other members of the
Do note
public.
the island sandpaper is here. All right, moving along to our administrative agenda, and discussion of the administrative variance text amendment draft, section 34-268.
So this is the first time that we're bringing this language to you since the joint meeting where there was a discussion regarding administrative variances. We believe that there are some instances where variances are so minor that they don't perhaps rise to the level of needing a public hearing. So we have put together an opportunity to allow people not to have a public hearing. Previously, the language was very loose and allowed for quite a few administrative variances. We've put that down to specific instances with distances and more specific information. So we're looking for feedback on this. This doesn't have to be a, you agree with this. This can be, make some changes, make some suggestions, and we can bring it back to you again.
I have a question on number 1. The way this reads, and I just want to make for clarification, this is only his ability to change side setbacks, increase height, improve additional architectural features is if it's a remodel, not a new construction only.
That's correct. The number 1 is for remodels only. Remodeling or additions.
I'm struggling with that.
Well,
Just take a look. Why? Because, as we're going through this right now in another process. I look at the house that's down here, just put on an addition and a remodel and an addition, and this thing is a monster. So
this is actually just talking about when the remodel or the addition has nothing to do with actual nonconformity. So if a house is, we run into this a lot, where somebody has an existing house that does not meet the side setbacks, but they're looking at putting an addition on the back. They would normally have to come to you for a variance for that side setback. even though they're not doing anything with that side setback. They want to put, they've already been told they can't increase into that side setback, that they can only add on to the rear where that does not encroach. And so this would give them the opportunity if their required setback was 7.5 feet and instead they were at 6 feet.
Tighten this language then, because that is how you're interpreting it, and that's how the current administration is interpreting this. But we've had previous ones that have interpreted this stuff completely different, and we ended up with some of the issues.
Okay.
I just like to tighten that up a little bit, just because this is up to interpretation as to what you mean.
Okay.
And give an inch and take a mile, it seems. So I understand how you guys are reading it.
Which part of it?
I just want to be very specific as to limiting when this, because if you read this, it does not state that it only applies to a single side setback like that, or
Okay.
it's an issue like that. It doesn't read that way to me.
Is there a way to use the example you just used, Sarah, and put that into the?
Potentially. I'll have to look at it and see how we can make that work, but we can definitely tighten it up.
Because I do think that even with some of this language and stuff, the eyes that I put on it was, we have one group that was in here 2 years ago that read all of these regs one way. We now have this group that this way. How do we lock that, not lock it, but get it a little closer to what we actually want?
Yeah.
And not leave so much open for interpretation.
No, I completely understand.
You else have any questions on these?
Kind of a general question. Apparently, originally under 34-268, the heading was administrative setback variances. And that eliminated setback. So there's now going to be administrative variances in other matters other than setbacks. All of these.
Well, I see one reason that might have been, it looks like chimneys
And the height.
permitted to encroach, so, to a certain distance. So I think maybe that was that it could allow for some instances where it was non-conforming for height. We didn't want to just say setbacks if we
Yeah.
also included a,
Really, basically, the only administrative variants are then really on setbacks and height. This section, period, this is it.
yes, that's the
This is
intent.
it. Now I understand there was a moratorium on a while. They weren't allowing variances.
We weren't allowing administrative variances, and it was because this language was so loose. We did not feel that it was appropriate for staff to make the determinations based on what this language said, because it essentially said if you had an oddly shaped lot or a corner lot, you could get a variance. So we felt like that was very loose, and we weren't comfortable administratively making those decisions.
Sarah, have we been seeing all of this minutia before the LPA? Because it doesn't seem like we have been seeing that many tiny.
No, you, in most instances, have not. Most of the setback variances have been fairly large. The majority of these would apply to usually errors. It's not where the house was purposefully built in the setback, 50 years ago. And 50 years ago, it wasn't in the setback, but now it is. It's errors in construction. Say they changed their surveying method and it's off by 1.5 inches. I haven't seen that as much in this community, but I have seen it a lot in new communities. And I think that you run into that more and more often as houses are being built precisely at the required setback. They're off by 0.5 inch. We want them to get a variance. Or, what kind of leeway can we give them if the house has been honestly improperly?
Currently,
Currently, you are seeing all of the variances that come in.
and you're saying we haven't had that many.
No.
This is just to help.
As more newer construction comes in, you see more of those small errors because they are pushing it to the very limits. if they do it incorrectly, then they're off.
Okay. Under our original code, the administrative person was called the director. Now, you're saying here the town manager or designee. Who can be the designee, and is there a designee? How does the town manager go about appointing a designee? Would that be on a case-by-case basis? He would designate somebody that...
I would say that's typically going to fall to the community development director, whoever that happens to be. But because there is fluctuation in staff from time to time, it's better to not put a specific title in there, but to say it's whoever the community or the town manager feels is most appropriate. Typically, it's going to be the head of community.
He would do that on a case?
I don't believe
Or
so. I
can-
think it would be more of a standing, this is the person who makes those types of decisions. But in the instance where staff changes or where titles change, it's the opportunity to not be stuck with one specific title that does that type of work.
To be, we got no variances in front of us for side setbacks and everything. We get them all, which is the difference between the two groups. So, I believe this brings some balance back to the situation, but if you want to tighten it down more, tighten it down more.
No, I thought a little open-ended, to just say a designee. I mean, it could be anybody. So we ought to
Designee with
consider
appropriate-
it being the, Harris pointed out, designee.
Oh, so here's an instance where having that specific language was an issue. Recently helped out the city of Fort Myers with their land development regulation. In there, they had a specific management title. When they redid their departments, everybody got adjusted and they assigned new titles. They came up with a new department head name, and that was part of the redo of the code that I did for them. I had to change all the titles and we made it designee. Or we change it to that specific new title. But then if they change the department head names again, then they have to change that section of code. So, I mean, you can put specific department heads in there. It's just going to cause you to have to rename them at some point. I'd say this is pretty standard practice to say designee.
What about designee with appropriate credentials?
When Sarah says rename, the issue is amending the code, change the title. That's what we're trying to avoid.
I understand that.
'Cause if you put in the Director of Community Development and a year from now, there's a decision to change that, you now have stated in an ordinance, it's the Director of Community Development. In order to be able to select the correct name, we have to go through the process of bringing it to you all and do public hearings before the town council, one of them which has to be advertised, which requires us to paper just to change a name.
It's kind of up to,
You could, Dan, you could say town manager or designee who must be a department head within the town. And then you don't have to wrestle with what John just articulated, but then you have someone at least who would be an authority designated.
Well, I certainly appreciate the but, and I feel uncomfortable.
again, I like your idea, or with appropriate credentials, or a development director, or equal title. So then again, you still get
Or
a department.
similar, or community development
How about,
director.
how about the community development officer, what is he now called? Community development,
Director.
or his successor? And,
Well, but if they change the title, then you run into a problem, is what they're saying. If we go through and do a reorg here and change titles,
If you go through a period of time where we do not have that position.
Successor as in that function or words to that effect. I don't know. I'm just raising this. I don't know if you people don't.
Designee with
Not
qualifications.
too upset about this.
designate with appropriate qualifications, or you get what he's asking for here, though. Not make it so that anybody can do these things.
For you, Sarah,
Yep.
on this thing with here, on this designee, who is it that would be responsible for determining who that designee is? Is there a set
manager.
process? Is it just the town manager just names him? Someone that has to be approved by council? I mean, what's the process you would go through to name this designee?
Typically, it would just be someone who is directed by the town manager to do that type of work. If
So
you
the
look-
town manager had sole authority to name whomever.
Yes, but it would be somebody who was on staff who was duly qualified. Because this is a legal issue, it isn't something that just anybody can come in and do. It would be somebody who would have to be qualified and understand this process.
Yeah, there's, you know, the managers is the chief administrative officer of the town under the town charter. He is the individual who is responsible, or he or she is the person responsible for, designated department heads and making those determinations. Ultimately, the responsibility is with the town manager. Obviously, all your comments are well taken, that obviously whoever that designee is someone that has to meet some minimum qualifications. And I don't think that there's any intent in that with this language that would be, that designee would fall short of those someone being qualified.
I agree with that, John. I mean, the town manager is ultimately responsible. Designee is qualified or does a poor job. It was designated by the town manager, so the buck stops with the town manager. So
Yeah. It's a direct reflection on the manager.
Satisfied or no? You satisfied, or would you like, I mean, what language would you like to see?
I can live with this. I just was raising it and trying to, if I was getting it, felt strongly. I would be in trouble trying to come up with that will avoid the necessity of subsequent amendments.
If I may,
Yeah.
trying to figure out here. In the code, in the land development code, there is a definition of director. Director means the town manager, any other person designated by the town manager to exercise the authority or assume the responsibilities given the director in this article.
But you changed the director. This doesn't say the director.
Says the town manager or designee. The code, another section of the code says that the director is the town manager or his designee.
We already use it someplace.
Correct. Again, the definition of director in the code means the town manager or any other person designated by the town manager.
Well, then why not leave it the way it was originally, where it says, and just leave the director and like town manager?
I believe that it's just that's a global change that staff is making as they go through this process.
director is the same thing as the town or designee.
Should say the
Then why
director.
not just say director?
If that's your preference, we can certainly
Which is
make
what
that
it says
change.
everywhere else in the code.
My point is, I think, as sections of the code, of the land development code are being amended, I believe the global template, for lack of a better description, is to manager or designee. Currently says director.
Why not put the director as defined by that code?
Yeah.
And that way you just change
That's
it one
fine.
time, one place,
All right, well,
and then you don't have to go through and change all this anytime.
And that section has some qualifications as to
And you don't have to also, if you look through this particular ordinance, it does refer to somebody called the director all the way through it,
If you
so
look
then,
at 1B, it says the
Then
director
you
may
don't-
approve bay windows, so
Yeah.
who's the director then if you take that out?
exactly. The director as defined by, and then you
we'll
don't,
make the change.
Because John, if you look at 1B on here, it says, after the second sentence, the director may approve bay windows, chimneys. If you take director out there,
We'll make the change.
it just becomes inconsistent, and then you're like, what's the director? Yeah.
with that,
Well, I'm happy now because the section he read indicates some qualification. He is.
all right,
It just simply says that whoever the town manager designates to administer the chapter. Your point is well taken. Make the change.
okay. Any other questions, concerns on this? Use. All right, so do I hear a motion to approve the changes with our changes? The changes to the draft changes to 34-268. No?
There's no,
Not the motion?
there's not a motion needed, because it's just to start the discussion process. We'll bring it back to in a more formal setting and, you know, formatted how we typically do for ordinance at some future point. And, you know, it's for you all to look at and see if there's anything else, to give some feedback to staff. And it'll come back as an action item.
Okay.
Right now, it's just a discussion item.
All right. Moving right along then. LPA member items. Do you have anything?
Nothing today.
I have two things that are they're really procedural type of things. First of all, I want to thank the staff for putting out the LPA, the comp plan for us. Secondly, this is just requests on that whether any other members of the agency agree. That this seems kind of nitpicking, but I would appreciate it when you print the packet, when you come to you don't start a new page with a new item. I separate these things, and then you get the last, get something that's the last page of the previous item on the back of a sheet, and next page a new item, and you don't have to make a copy of one or the other so you can separate them.
We'll see what we can do. I'm not sure how, if we can add additional pages, or if we see that it falls on an odd number, or rather an even number, the last page, if we can add a blank page in there. I'm not sure how that'll work, but we'll certainly look at trying to
That's
figure
your
out. how to-
program?
That's the
program.
I do that, I print out my own agenda, but whether it's the LPA or any of the agendas I get for that exact reason, and I make sure that I print from where it breaks
Yeah.
and onto the new item. I'm consuming, but I have the same issue, and maybe it's something OCDC as I get older. I like to see a new, when you turn that tab to the next page, it's the new item and not.
I can tell you from somebody that doesn't have OCD, I agree with Dan.
Okay.
Apparently we've got some consensus on that.
And I'm not responsible for the printing, but we'll see what we can do.
A good
I'm not-
example is
Yeah.
is giving us the comp plan, but if we don't have the, the very front page is on the back of another page, so, sort of thing. So, anyway, my other issue was, I would like the staff at our meetings under community development reports, give us the status of what happened with matters that we have referred to the town council, which we may not have attended a meeting or seen the meeting, but just a brief one sentence like approved, denied, deferred, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice idea.
That's my other request, that they could just do that on a regular basis, so we know what's been resolved or not resolved, and where.
What they've seen. I asked this week about the side setbacks. Has it been, I didn't catch the last meeting.
The other alternative is to have to attend the town council meetings to find out, or to watch it. And could I just stick needles in my eyeballs?
What, you don't want to watch the 8-hour meeting?
I have a question. Is there on the books, is there a joint meeting between us and
Well, that
the new
was-
town council?
It's coming up.
It's not definite?
What I was going to say is that, yes, last year after Newtown Council, we had a meeting with them in which we got the 10 items that we wanted to attack over the 12 months. We've gotten through all but one, which I think is coming in front of us soon. So what I would like, we'll call another meeting. What I was going to say at that point is that those who are on town council, those who are running for town council, and those who are sitting here on this board, or interested in this board, get to know the comprehensive plan, because I think that that's the direction we're going to go over the next 12 months, is look at that. But, again,
I think that falls under items for an upcoming agenda. I think that will be on, staff will place that on an upcoming agenda.
well, we
for
have to actually
scheduling.
go in front of them and request the meeting, as I understand it. So wouldn't that come through us?
I
That's what we've always been
Either
told,
way,
is
I
that
mean,
we have to request it.
We'll follow up with staff, make sure that happens and place it on an agenda so we can start coordinate the dates.
For all of us, I think at this point, we start looking at that and coming up with what, this board would like to accomplish over the 12 months, coming 12 months, and go from there. I guess maybe if this, depending on the amendment, what happens, it'd be 18 months before we get a new town council. But I'd like to see us come up with, it worked really well this year to have a focus, wanted to accomplish, and we got a lot of it done because we had better focus on it. So we'll call another meeting as soon as the town council is sat up with our 12-month agenda for us. Yeah, that was in my items too. But yeah, no, you're good. But I think that's probably most appropriate that we're thinking through what we want. Did a great job this year, thinking through our, ended up being 3 meetings with them to get it, but we all were on the same, pretty much on the same page on most of what. I think with, things like we keep hearing about disaster build back, it needs to be up for discussion. It is not gone. It's still in the code right now. Somebody is watching and on, it's still in the code. Let's put it up for discussion now. Be an idea. Cool? Anything else, Scott? I'm sorry, I kind of honed
No,
in
ma'am.
on that. That was going to be on my agenda items for me, was that. We have a town council meeting tomorrow. Is there anything on that agenda? We're throwing up everything into that meeting that you have tomorrow.
200 Pearl. is.
Pearl Street, Pearl Street's up.
Yeah. That's my item on the agenda. I believe that's my only item. Everything else through.
There's a special exception for God's properties on.
Okay, so,
Pearl Street's up in the, that ordinance on the vacation, but you know, we have
Vacating
been
a
Vacation's
involved in,
done.
but are no longer involved in.
vacating is done?
Yeah, that's done. There is a request for a vacation. You all have already heard when sitting as the LPA, when it was under its previous regulations. You have seen it. The application for the TI.
Okay.
As I said, the special exception for God's property is on there as well.
Minimum setbacks is up too.
Ordinance, yeah.
Discussion.
Yeah, that's just a discussion item.
Okay, oh, okay. A public hearing.
I can't.
Ordinance 2008.
Okay.
Waterfront setbacks.
Oh, waterfront setbacks, yes, I apologize, waterfront
Setbacks
setbacks.
are up.
Okay, I understand.
Waterfront setbacks.
Yeah, that will be the second hearing for waterfront setbacks. I apologize, I thought you were talking about the
Yeah.
setbacks and height.
Figure it out. Anything else on our agenda? Any items from the members? Attorney. All right. Items for next month's agenda. Yeah, it is? Nope. Okay.
There's one item that will probably be on there, but we have some details prior to knowing if it's ready to.
Okay. Public comment? All right, no public comment. That note, we can adjourn. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 9:55.